Hello and welcome everyone. Welcome back to DevChatter. Sorry about the delay there. I started a little bit later than I usually like to. It is about a little after 2 p.m. Here in Eastern Time in the United States, and it is, Monday the 6th of August. And as is our thing, we have been doing a series we like to call Learn to Code in C#. And for Learn to Code in C#, we are taking a beginner level approach so that we can welcome anybody to it. But realistically, if you want to learn C#, you're going to learn a little bit about C# while you're here. I notice a few people are coming into chat. So hello, Mage, Greendolf, S&B, Rubix, welcome everyone. Hopefully you're all having a fantastic start to your week. I know one of the best ways to start the week is with some good fun coding, so I hope you are all up for that today. Okay, so we have been doing this series, as I said, for... trying to think how many episodes we've done already. We've done 4, so this is episode 5. So if you haven't seen the beginning part of our series, you can actually find that on Twitch. I will show you where. It's on our videos section right here. There is a Learn to Code section. So if you want to watch our beginning episodes, that's where you can find out how we got to this point. However, the way that we do all of these episodes is that we like to start it at a level where anyone could just jump in. So even though we're 5 episodes in, we'll try to make sure that even if you are coming in fresh, and this is your first time here with us, that you are still able to at least follow along. So even if there are parts that you don't understand, you can go through the motions and ask any questions if you are wondering how to do something. So thank you, Rubix, for linking to the setup. So the handful of things that we want you to install in order to follow along with us include Visual Studio Code. So there's just 3 simple things, and only 2 of them are installers. The first one is Visual Studio Code, which you can download for Windows, Mac, or Linux. It'll probably figure out the operating system you're running and offer you the correct one, but that'll get you started. Striker, yes, you joined at the perfect time, so if you are interested in following along for any of these, so even if you want to start at episode 1 after you're done with the lesson today, Visual Studio Code is the first tool that you need to install. The second one that we want you to install is called the Dotnet Core Sdk. So if you are completely new to programming, SDK just stands for Software Development Kit, and it essentially is just a fancy way of saying this is the software that actually lets me run the code. So that's all that is. So Striker, today is a Learn to Code in C# episode, so this is one of our more beginner level episodes, but we are doing a lot of cool stuff on the stream. And for anyone who is one of our regulars, I actually have a cool surprise for all of you that I want to show you. I'm not done with the surprise yet, but I figured I'd show you all because it's cool anyway. And I Heart Coding, hello, welcome. And I should mention, as Striker alluded, so Striker has Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code. Striker, you may not have the SDK installed, but the way you can check, if you are curious, is if you go into the command line inside of VS Code, which the way you do that is you click up here on View and you go down to Integrated Terminal right there, which mine was already up, so there's a keyboard shortcut to bring it up as well, and that's Control Backtick, and it showed it to us right here. So Control Backtick will bring this up, and then all you do is you say .NET and then --info, so it looks like that. If you type in that command, you should see SDKs that you have installed. So I have .NET Runtimes installed, and I have .NET SDKs installed. So I have a whole bunch on here. You probably don't have quite as many as I do. Welcome everybody from the Code Rush stream. So if you are all here and looking forward to learning some C#, This is one of our beginner level streams that we do here on the channel. So we do both in-depth, like architecture specific, this is how you build real world stuff in C#. Those are some of our other streams. We build real applications, real world stuff with all the latest things. But then we also do these beginner level streams. So even if you already do know C# and wouldn't consider yourself a beginner program, you're welcome to stay and answer questions for anybody else who does show up and has questions. Striker, if it's your first time in the stream, hello and welcome. We hope that you enjoy it. We have a bunch of regulars, and all of our code is stored out on GitHub, which, if that means something to you, awesome. And we also chat over in our Discord. Okay, so that's how you check that you have the SDK installed. So in order to install it, just download this Dotnet Core Sdk. That's the second tool that you need. Pretty easy. And if you miss those links, I will post them again in chat. And that's all you need in order to get this set up. Once you have VS Code installed, it'll open up. It'll look a little bit like this. You'll have some different screens up, but the key thing is you'll have this left-hand side here, and I want you to click on this little square here. It says extensions, and then type in C, and then the number sign, we call that C# for our language, and then that, whoops, and then it wasn't supposed to disappear out from under me. I don't know why that disappeared. I mean, I already have it installed, so it didn't need to show it to me, but... So C# right here. Should look like this. You'll see this big icon, and you know you have the right one because it'll be from Microsoft. So once you get that on there, then you'll be all set up and you'll be able to follow along. Okay, so that's the big thing. So many links. We call that hashtag if you're under 25 or over 65 Rubik's. Should we get code from GitHub or to create a new web app? Steeplef. For these streams, we always start off so far we've always started off with a base application. We've started with nothing. We start from scratch, but we may change that in the future. I haven't totally decided yet. The thing that I do want to show you guys, for anyone who's not new here, for the regulars, I added a new thing. I don't know if you'll notice it on my screen, but it does that. I don't know if I can make it do it again, or if I can only do it once. I can only do it once right now. It's barely hacked in there. Anyway, I figured I'd mention it. I put that in there so the hype thingy moves around now when we do our hype command. So essentially the idea is I have messed with our overlay a little bit so we can do some cool things. So should be fun. All right. So, hopefully that has given people enough time to get the tooling installed to be able to follow along. If it isn't enough time for you, you can go ahead and keep installing and just pay attention. Yell at us if you need us to slow down on anything, and we will. And if you have questions, go ahead and shout those out. Also, you have the same color as the bot, therefore you're the bot. Maybe on your screen, I heart coding. Oh, you need to have Pepsi installed. The way that you install Pepsi is you pick up this Diet Orange Crush can and then you drink it. And then once you drink the Diet Orange Crush, you take the can and you set it off to the side, outside, away from the stream. And then once you've done that, you then crack open your can of delicious Pepsi product, whether it's, Pepsi Wild Cherry or Diet Pepsi, doesn't matter, whatever you want. And then that's the fuel for coding. Yes, Blub, the Pepsi is required in order to code in C#. So that is actually the substance that makes bits turn from 0 to 1. So without that, programs just don't work on computers. So, okay. So once you've got everything installed, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to File, Open Folder. Make yourself a folder that you want to work in. So I am going to just do mine based on a date, because that works out well for me. because I am streaming these and I want to keep track of which date I streamed. Mage, sponsored. Man, I wish this stream was sponsored by Pepsi. That would be awesome. What size are the cans over in the States? 3 to 3 milligrams. That was a great question. 355 milliliters. 355, so only slightly larger than yours, I Heart Coding. Yeah, I think it's just the lens. It adds like what you said, 330, so it adds 25 milliliters. Ours are actually 12 ounces. That's why it doesn't match up with yours, probably, because you probably don't use US ounces. Was considering the VS Code for PHP project and watching. Katrina, yeah, so VS Code actually works well with PHP, Java, JavaScript, C#, whatever you want to use. It's just an editor. So that's one of the nice things there. Yeah, so Mage is correct. If you want to drink Coke or any other beverage, whether it be coffee or tea or anything like that, that's also acceptable. The important thing is that you should have some caffeine intake in order to program. Striker, actually, if people do want to use a different editor, you are welcome to use a different editor. So if you already have Visual Studio installed, you can follow along with that as well. Okay, so now that I've created my folder, I'm going to go ahead and select it. And this actually gets us over to our project. So we now have an open folder. On the left here, this empty screen is showing me the contents of that folder we just opened up. So the contents of the folder are currently empty. In order to bring it up, I opened up my terminal. There are a couple of ways you can do that. You can either toggle the terminal. It says Control Backtick, which is what I'm clicking to do this. But if you can't find the backtick, just go up here to View and go to Integrated Terminal, and that will bring it up as well. So once you get this up, we're going to want this open for a lot of the things we're doing today. And I want new programmers to be comfortable with the command line. You don't need to master the command line. We just want it for like a couple of things, and I want to show you that it's not as scary as a lot of people think. So in order to make sure that you have the tools installed, go ahead and just type in the word .NET. So D-O-T-N-E-T, just like that. And you should come back with this screen that is sort of a help screen. And this is just saying, hey, I noticed you typed this in. That's not valid the way you typed it. Let me show you how to use it. The next thing that you want to type in is info. So D-O-T-N-E-C space and then 2 dashes and then the word info. And this you just want to have come back with some info. Yours is not going to be the same as mine. You're going to have different stuff installed, but that will set you up. So once you've got that, then you can go ahead and type CLS. So literally CLS like that, and that clears out the screen and you're back to this. So once you're here, I want you to type in .NET and then new. And the reason we're typing new is because we want to create a new thing, and when we type this in, again, remember I told you if you do something wrong in the command line, a lot of tools are going to try to help. So in this case, it's just jumping in and saying, hey, I need more information. I can't actually just new a thing. So it comes back and it gives some suggestions. And the suggestions it gives are things like a console application, unit test project. And what we want to do is we want to create a new we're going to make a new console application, I think. So let's do this. So .NET new console and hit enter. Now the way that we're doing this, because I named my project with a number to start, there's some weirdness with it, but it doesn't really cause a problem because all of our tooling takes care of these things. So whatever you wanted to name your folder is now the name of your project because we didn't tell it that. So that's totally fine, and there is no problem with this. So the next thing we want to do is we want to confirm that our program runs. So I'm going to type in .NET run. Now let me catch up on chat. So hopefully you all get to that point. If you have any questions, chime in chat and we'll help catch you up so you can get to this point. Let me check out chat. US metric system. US doesn't have a metric system. How triggering is month, day, year, though? No. Month, day, year is fine. Day, month, year is fine. But programmers all know that year, month, day is the best. Anyone have any idea how to change my terminal PowerShell instead of Bash? Yeah. Tick this box and you can change it, I think. Or alternately, there's a setting somewhere to adjust it. I don't remember where, though. Date format is the most annoying thing in the world. I agree, Blub, it can be a problem. The command line chased me with a machete through the dark forest. That's weird. 6-hour course on dates, that's impressive. You're 5 feet tall. Cool. Steve left question. Oh, change the terminal? I actually don't remember how to change that. And you do need to have PowerShell installed. Month, 80. Yes, exactly. Yep. Okay, all right. We can argue over measurements all you like. There's a lot of variance on the quality of them. But at least all programmers can agree that indices start at 0 and base 60 is the best numbering base. Okay, so at this point, hopefully everybody's gotten to the point where their code does hello world. So again, .NET run and it just says hello world. If it doesn't say hello world, something went wrong. So I want you to go over to the left hand. Remember I told you that this what used to be an empty box over here is showing us what we have in our folder. So this is the file contents. So we have program.cs right now. And in program.cs, you should have this code when we take a look at it. And again, for anybody who wasn't here at a previous one or is just getting started, this is the entry point to our program. This is our main. And we're doing a console write line on Hello World. Now, I want to do something cool with all of you today that I don't think I've done yet on stream. Although if I did it a long time ago. I don't think I did it on a Learn to Code stream. And if I did, then somehow I've lost my mind and forgotten that happened. So, yes, Greendolf and... So, other people that have been, there are people living in 46 degrees C? That's insane. Yes, Greendolf is hatching. So, I don't remember if I did it, but, have I done a, maybe you guys remember, did I do a Learn to Code stream where we talked about prime numbers? Did I do that on one of the early ones? I can't remember if I did it, so I intended to. But for some reason I'm thinking I did not do that. So... It was the first one. Okay. Good. So in that case, we have covered some of the basic concepts. So if it wasn't the first one, it was one of the early ones. I couldn't remember if I did it or not. Okay. So, what I want to start with is this. Hang on. I need to pull up instructions really quickly and toss them on the screen. Where is it? Okay, there it is. Whoops. Yeah, that one. Okay. Alright, so here's what we're going to do today. This is something that most of you have, most of the professional developers in the room have done before. We are going to do this one for the beginners because I want to teach a new concept. So, something that we have talked about previously, but we have not yet done on this stream, not done on a Learn to Code episode. We do this all the time on the other ones, but we haven't done yet here. I want you to type .NET New again. And once you type .NET New, I want you to take a look at, whoops. I want you to not do what I just did and hide away your window. Where is that one? Explorer, there we go. Don't hide your window, that's a bad idea. So keep in mind, if you accidentally lose one of these windows, you can find most of them here inside of the view window. So notice I accidentally got rid of my Explorer window. I can actually just bring Explorer back. Anyway, so I type in .NET New. I'm going to type it again just so you can see. And then what I want us to do is I want to do a new unit test project. So we're going to say XUnit. So .NET New XUnit. And I think this will be okay. Cross your fingers. We're going to find out. Nope. It will not change it. So what we need to do is we need to say, what's the parameter? Output. Location, place generated output. Okay, yep, that's what we want. So .NET New XUnit, and what I want you to do is this. Say -O, and that's for output. We want to say unit tests. And I think that's all we have to do, and it'll create the right one. Okay, good. It did what we wanted. Yes, Rubik's, we have to do some unit testing. Even the beginners need to learn about unit testing because it is such a pervasive thing inside of programming. Yes, unit testing is an exciting thing. Hype, 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 hype. So, unit testing. Once we've got this set up, we still have our program, so if I say .NET Run, it should still say Hello World just like normal. We did not do anything special. Rump. Type name says any XUnit cannot be found. .NET Restore. .NET Build. Hang on. Okay, so what you need to do in order to make this happen, once you've done the .NET New on a unit test, what you need to do is you need to say cd unit test. So you can basically just hit cd u and then a tab and it will complete and do this command. And then that will actually move you into the unit test folder. And then I want you to say .NET Restore. And once you do that, that will get you what you need in order to run it. I'm not going to explain what that command does, except that it gets you the stuff that's needed to run your code. So the next thing you want to do is a .NET Build, and then you should get to this where it says in green, build succeeded. So now I want to type .NET Test. And everything works fine. So, .NET Test, that's our friend. So, let's jump into our unit test project. We're going to live in this today. So, for this work that we're doing today, we're going to learn about the concept of unit testing. So actually, I probably should have just had you do the unit test from the start. So what I'm going to recommend actually is that we start this over just a little bit. So I want you to click over in this rectangle, and I want you to I want you to do Reveal an Explorer. So that should get you an Explorer window. Once you've got this open, I want you to go ahead and open up the folder that you created for this project. So that's this one for me. It's right here. So these are our files. Once I have that open, I'm going to click up here. Well, actually, I'm going to... I'm going to click around like an idiot, apparently. Striker, I'll explain in a second. Don't you worry. I want you to just go ahead and delete everything that we put in that folder. Because we're going to do this. So, do a cd ... so you're back here. So, again, we're going to be right at the beginning of the project, empty thing. If you want, you could create a new folder, and that's fine too, and just do a file open folder, like we did originally, to get in here, and then choose your folder, select folder, and you'll be at a starting point. Once you're here, we're going to go ahead and do the .NET new like we did last time, except this time we're going to go ahead and create just the unit test project. So we're going to say .NET new XUNIT. So .NET new XUnit. Okay, that's all we're typing in. Super simple. That's why we started that piece again. And then once we've done that, that should get us our unit test project. So I'm going to do a .NET build. Now this may have gotten us, okay, it did, cool. So previously what we've been doing is .NET run, okay? This is what you've gotten used to up to this point. We've been doing .NET run, and that runs your code. But we're going to learn about a new concept today called unit testing. And I'll explain what it is and why we do it, and you'll see why we do it in just a second, because we're going to use it and you're going to realize the power of it. So run is not what I want to do here. I could do .NET run and it's not going to do anything. And the reason why is, as we've mentioned in some of our previous streams, the starting point in any program that we create, you'll remember, was always a program main method. So that static main method that we were always writing our code in, that's not in this project. So we did an XUnit project instead of a console or a web project. So this is our third project type we've done here on the stream. And Striker, I will absolutely explain what this is. Yes, I am. And hang on. I need... Yeah, so what's weird here is the editor actually doesn't know what that type is, but anyway, I'm going to type in .NET test instead of .NET run. So it's right here, that's all I typed in, and you'll notice it runs a little bit differently. So what it came back with here is it says test run successful. And it says total test 1, passed 1, failed 0, skipped 0. So it says it ran one test and it succeeded, essentially. So, cool, awesome, my tests pass. What does that mean? For a lot of you, that doesn't mean much of anything just yet. So what I want to do is this. I want to say assert.fail. Actually, I'm going to say assert.true false. Okay. Give me 1 second. I need to tell, does anybody remember how to tell VS Code to look up this dependency? Again. Because I don't remember how to tell it, hey, that dependency's there. And it should already have it, because the code has it. Yeah. That's a good question. Google does know. VS Code, XUnit dependency. We'll say that. Actually, that's a good question. XUnit? No, that's just someone's Test Explorer. Yeah, I don't remember how to tell it to do that. Okay, so, all that was going on was when VS Code loads, what it tries to do is it checks to see, it tried to load the dependencies, and I think I told it not now, and that's on me. If it tells you that same thing, go ahead and let it do it. Yes, I am missing that directive. How did you know? Basically, Visual Studio Code wanted to help me, and I didn't let it. Yeah, you didn't need all that stuff. This is what I want to search for. There we go. Yeah, so Brave Cobra, the interesting thing here is that it does run just fine. So a .NET Restore, it already works. The problem is VS Code. So VS Code's the only thing. Does anybody remember how to reload the window? There's a reload window thing. Someone's got to remember this. Doesn't anybody use VS Code? Reload window. There it is. Okay, fixed. Okay, so as I told you, the code worked fine. VS Code just didn't know what to do with it. So what I'm going to say is it says that I've got required assets missing, and I'm going to go ahead and say yes this time. So now it's going to have all the right bits to know how to run my code. So I let VS Code help out. So I just allowed it to do its thing. So remember, I just changed this from assert true, and everything fails, and now if I switch it to assert true, true, everything is going to succeed. So let me explain what's going on, because there's some weirdness here. So I want to explain what's going on. So essentially, the testing tools that we've got here, when I say .NET Test, what .NET Core does is it looks at my code. Lumen, this is a learn to code stream. Go watch from the beginning. We're literally explaining to beginners how to code. This is literally a stream for people like you that don't know how to code, but also welcome. Hi, how's it going? Hang on one second, everybody. I gotta do a thing. There we go. Alright, I did my thing. Also, Lumen, you should check out my awesome little badges. See those badges? We got badges. Okay, so here's what is going on. When we run that, it looks at my code and it says, hey, where are the unit tests? And it finds this. So this word fact, that is the way that XUnit defines its unit tests. So whenever you see one of these, that means this method. So we've seen methods before. This is a method. You can tell because it's got, you know, an access modifier. It says its return type. It's got a name. It's got parentheses to pass in a parameter, and it's delineated by these curly braces. So you can tell this is a method, and this is the code inside the method. This is called an attribute. So this little piece up here, this just is a bit of metadata. It's extra information to tell the system, hey, this is a special bit of code. This is a unit test. So some people in the chat may have seen this, which is the syntax used by NUnit, or if you've used a tool called MSTest, you've seen this name. And they're all the same, but for the tool we're using, we call it a fact. And so essentially the idea is you can think about it this way. A unit test should define a fact about your code. So it is a fact that something about my code is true. So in this case, I might say fact, true should be true. And I can type that, and that becomes a fact. So notice how I wrote the name very clearly about what is going on here. So Yes, Janisku, there's also theory. So there are facts and theories in XUnit. That's the way it works. But let's just focus on fact for now because it's a little easier. So if pass light bulb turns green. Yes, exactly. So if my method succeeds, things turn green and it says success. No, Brave Cobra, people are welcome to make suggestions, ask questions, things like that, even if you're already a programmer. Just if there is anybody else here that is learning and asks a question, be nice, answer the question. And I want to tell everybody that if you do have a question and you want to ask it, even if you feel like, oh, I don't want to sound dumb, I don't want to sound like I missed something, I don't want to, don't worry, we're not gonna, like, we are here to help, we are not going to ridicule anyone. We want to answer your questions, so even if you think, oh man, I'm gonna sound so stupid if I ask this thing, it's okay. Ask the question. We are trying to help you, so don't worry about it. We are a friendly community here. Let's see. So if I put console, will the result be green? Yes, actually, if you do that. So you can start testing out some stuff with this code. So I might do some things like this. I could do a console write line and say hello world in here, and that's totally fine. So I typed in console write line hello world. If I run my .NET test, it goes ahead and it runs and it says test succeeded. Exactly, I heard coding, but everybody just assumes that we're not friendly on Fridays because, you know, friendly Fridays aren't a thing. Okay, so that code was irrelevant because it did not mess with my other code. If I were to do this, I could say int x equals 0, and then I could say assert equal, and I could say 0, x, right? I can run this, and that essentially says I want to assert that x and 0 are equal. If they are, it succeeds. If, however, I set x equal to 1, and I run the test again, what I'm going to get back is a big old failure, and it says it expected 0 right here, and the actual was 1. So that's a big error message, I know, don't worry about it. But that will help us find it. Okay, so why am I showing you these unit tests? Well, I want to help you to learn about the existence of unit tests and also show you how we can use them. So, let's go ahead and do this. Let me get that out of the way. Let me get this up here. So, we're going to do a little exercise. And this is one that's known to a lot of professional developers. We actually do this exercise from time to time. This is a real programming exercise that I have done more times than any developer actually wants to do this. I have done this for interviews. I've been the one interviewing. I don't give this as an interview question for other people, but I have done this at user groups. I have done this at workshops, at conferences. I have done this in all kinds of places. I have done this working with teams. So many professional developers write this code. So let's explain it. I want to give you a brief explanation of the concept here because this code has a story behind it. So imagine that we're in a classroom and we have a teacher in the class who's teaching the children about the concept of multiples. So the idea is that 3 is a multiple of 3, 6 is a multiple of 3, 9 is a multiple of 3, 15 is a multiple of 3, 30 is a multiple of 3. There are a lot of multiples of 3, so anytime you have 3 times any number, that's a multiple of 3. And that's for whole numbers, don't, you know, you guys know what I'm talking about, don't troll me. So, in this exercise, the teacher wants to help the students understand it. So his goal is he's going to point to each student in the classroom and he's going to say, okay, you know, point to you, and the first kid's supposed to say the number 1. The next kid's supposed to say the number 2. Well, there's a special rule that he has, and that is for all multiples of 3, he wants the kids to say fizz instead of saying the number. So the third child, instead of saying 3, she needs to say fizz. And then the next child needs to say 4. And then the next one, we have another rule. For all multiples of 5, we need to say buzz. So the 5th child says buzz. And then the 6th child says fizz. The 7th child says 7. The 8th child says 8. The 9th child, fizz. The 10th child, that's a multiple of 5, so buzz. And then on until you get to 15. So 15 is a multiple of both 3 and 5, and so the student needs to yell FizzBuzz. And that gets us to the namesake of this exercise. So when we do these programming exercises, you'll often hear us call them a kata. So this programming kata is called FizzBuzz because of the 15 and other multiples of 3 and 5 both, where we need to say FizzBuzz. So in this kata, essentially the idea is that we want to write FizzBuzz and essentially have it come up with these numbers and respond back with the correct thing. Now, when this is done with professional programmers, we're looking for an elegant solution. And a lot of times the problem will be explained that, oh, actually we're creating a FizzBuzz library that we want to have distributed. And so we add on these concepts because we want to have the professional developer create a library or understand the connections between different pieces of software and things like that. So we're using a simple concept that we all understand and is easy to sort of model a larger thing that the developers need to work on. And so that's often why it's used that way. But the nice thing is, it is such a simple problem space that I've already explained it to you. That's all there is to it. So now we just have to code it. So I think that everybody here, whether you are beginner, intermediate, or advanced, can write FizzBuzz. So I'm here to prove exactly that. With your help, of course. So, we did this just to test things out and to show you that our values can succeed or fail, our tests can pass or fail, right? And we can make these changes. So, that is what we want to do. So let's start off. In professional programming today, we do something called test-driven development. You'll hear us call it TDD. I'll type that in chat so you know what letters I spoke there so it's not confusing. TDD, that's test-driven development. We have a special phrase for that, and what we do is we say red-green refactor. So that means start off with a failing test. That's the red. The green is make the test pass. So yes, I know Western-centric, red is bad, green is good. Don't let that, don't read into that. That's just the default conventions on the colors in the languages we use. Now the last thing, so red, green, refactor. So refactor is a fancy way of saying change your code without changing the behavior. So that kind of means do some cleanup of your code. So make a test that fails, make the test pass, and then clean up your code. Red, green, refactor. And that's all there is to it. Nice and easy. Okay. And yes, I say that's nice and easy, but no, I will never tell you that like programming is easy or whatnot. There's a lot of challenges, but I think that you can do it. So, the first thing that we want to do is we want a well-named test and a starting place. So, I'm going to make some code that does FizzBuzz. You're going to make it too. So what we want to do is we want to start off with maybe code that says the first FizzBuzz number is 1. So I want to do this. First thing is I'm going to change the name of this class to... actually, no, I'm going to leave that alone. We're just going to change this. First number should be 1. So first number should be 1. That is our test. Wait, what is this? So how does one know what results you... A unit test allows you to verify very quickly. Manual testing takes lots of time. Yes, Brave Cobra, that is exactly correct. And Brave Cobra is correct. There is no programmer that has written bug-free code. Okay. 1, 2, Fizz, I'm a professional now. Exactly. And welcome everybody who has followed today. I apologize that I have not been on the ball about welcoming everybody. Okay, so first number should be 1. So here's what we're going to do. I want to get us a class that we can use. So because we're just doing a unit test, we kind of we're doing a kata. So that means we're doing some practice. We're training ourselves as developers. So we're going to leave a couple of the rules out. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to create a class right here. And I'm going to call this class not FizzBuzzer, FizzBuzzer. So I want you to create this basic structure. Public class FizzBuzzer with a couple of curly braces. The next thing I want you to do is this. Put in the word static. So it now says public static class FizzBuzzer. And go ahead and just say .NET build. So just like that, .NET build, and go ahead and hit enter. And the reason we're doing that is just to make sure that we didn't make any mistakes. So as long as that works right, we got everything correct. So remember, you can always just run your code, build your code. So build takes this text, turns it into binary code. That's what your program is eventually going to become before the computer executes it. You could also do a .NET run or a .NET test, and those will also build. So you can do these kinds of things just to run your code. It's always important, just run your code every once in a while. Don't even worry about it. You don't have to be done. Because if it does throw an error, that's fine. If it does, and you know, hey, there was a problem, and you can see what it was. Maybe you just weren't finished. Okay, so here's what I want to do. We created that. I can now type FizzBuzzer, and then I could say dot, and notice it doesn't have any good suggestions for me yet. And that's fine. I'm going to delete that. Then I'm going to come down here. I'm going to get on this line, on this spot, and I'm going to say public void foo. Now, why did I call it foo? Foo is what I called this method because I didn't want to name it yet. So public static void foo. So this is just a good placeholder now. I've made a method, and I can come up here and I can say fizzbuzzer.foo. Right? And that code works just fine. I can do this. It's not going to do anything, but it runs. And I can verify it runs by coming down here and saying .NET test again. Yes, exactly, I heart coding. I'm trying not to have people just do a play button because I want you to understand the concept that we are actually building stuff. We're really doing something. And I also want to take some of that fear away. Because if you are planning on, if you do think you might be interested in going into coding, you need to not be afraid of that command line window that we're in there. Notice all the commands I'm doing are simple. I've used like 3 commands on .NET. I've used .NET new, .NET test, .NET run, .NET build. It's super simple stuff. There's just a handful, and you just have to memorize a couple of things. So the challenge there is just knowing what to type in, and you need to learn some of that. So if it gets scary, just ask a question. We'll tell you how to do it. That's what we are here for. Okay, so I'm going to change this to FizzBuzz. So no longer called foo, I'm now calling a method called FizzBuzz. And I want to do something special with it. So I want to change this from the word void. Now, I don't know if I've explained the word void every time, but void like, if you think of the void or something like that, void is the idea of emptiness or absence or nothing. And so what that means is this method returns nothing. So when you call it, you don't get anything back. But I want something back. So we've talked about these before. List of int. So I typed in list int. And you guys have seen this syntax before. But with my cursor somewhere on the word list, I want to hit Control. So the Control key on my keyboard, holding it down. and I'm going to hit the dot key. And then when I do that, it pops up this little window here. And I want to say using system collections generic. And when I do that, all of a sudden, the red squiggly line under list disappears. So it actually added this line of code to the top. And that's the one that tells .NET Core, hey, this guy's allowed to use lists. So I've sort of included them. I've said, hey, I want access to lists. And so it gives them to me. So now I have access to lists. So now I've got this other squiggly line. And this new one is because it says not all code paths return a value. So remember I said that the void I had before means nothing, but now I have something, which means I need to return something. So in my method, I want to say return new list of int, and that's the way we read this syntax, by the way. We say list of int. So whenever you see this type of syntax, that's a something of something. So that will make this code work. So now I'm returning back a new list of integers from my FizzBuzz method, and because I get those back, I want to store them somewhere. So I want to say list of int numbers equals that. And so now what I've done is I've said, hey, when you get back your list of numbers from this method, go ahead and store it in this variable here, this list of numbers variable that I've got. And my numbers, I can only appreciate the amount of patience you have to explain this to beginners. I really... Don't worry, Brave Cobra. For anyone who's wondering, I actually have taught programming courses before. I actually taught beginning programming courses for non-computer science majors at a university. So it's actually really fun to do. Jadisco, I think you typoed that. It's that command. Okay. So now we have our numbers. So what I said was the first number. So I want to say numbers, and there's a special thing that we can do with lists. Now, I'm going to show you this right off the bat, and it's mildly dangerous. This is called square braces. So these symbols, they're called square braces. So I want to say first number equals numbers 0. So square braces, again, are just the square brackets, an open and a closed one, and the way that we use them with collections. So when we talked about collections a few episodes ago, what we discussed is that a collection is just an ordered list of numbers. So in this case, we have numbers, they start over on one side, which actually for you guys I should say they start over here, and then they're in sequence going over. And so the first one is at index 0, and yes, we start with index 0, so it's at 0, and then 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4. Okay, and then that's the order that we put these in. So we always index from 0. Yeah, so daily pixel. Yes, so if you've learned about Java, this is kind of like a Java array, but I forget Java object names. A list is a sequential set of data that's stored nicely. But yeah, they're going to look similar. Okay, so this gets us the first item out of that collection. And I do want to point out, before we get there, that line of code is actually what's going to fail here. But we're going to finish writing this first. So remember, I said the first number should be 1. So I want to say 1 first number. So I said assert equal, and then 1 and the first number. So that's basically saying I want that value to equal this. I'm going to save my code, and I'm going to type .NET test. And when I do this, it fails, like we said it would. And here's what we're getting. and you'll see why. So remember I said it was going to fail here on line 14. So you will notice in our error, oh, did it not tell us the line number? Yes, it did, right here. Notice it says line 14. So that's exactly where we expected the failure, and here's why it failed. So inside of our method, I returned back a new list. So I just said new list of integer, and then up here we got back this list. So we got back this new list, stored it in here, and then tried to access the first value. Now here's the problem. The list starts out empty. So we tried to access it when there wasn't anything in it. So that's actually why we got the failure. So that's actually what happened. So it's kind of weird. VFRZ, hello, welcome. Okay, so we need something in here. So remember I told you red-green refactor. So step 1 was actually to get red. So this is valid. Like, we wanted that red. That's what we wanted. So let's get past that point. So we're going to do this. Actually, do I want to show you guys that? Maybe. Numbers. I want to say list int numbers equals new list of int. Right? So this is a standard variable declaration. We've seen this before. We have a type, we have a name, and then we say equals new whatever the thing is we want to create. And so this creates this object and stores it in here. Once it's in here, I can just say numbers.add 1. And once I do that, our code's going to return that back, and we can just say .NET test, and hey, boom, green, red, green, perfect. We're following along exactly the way that we want to. Okay. Is there a keyboard shortcut for switching between the terminal window and the editor in code? It's actually, yeah, so it's actually not the tilde key, it's control backtick, and the backtick is on the same key as the tilde on a US keyboard. So if you go up to View, Integrated Terminal, it'll show you what your keyboard shortcut is right there. It's on the right-hand side. I apologize, that's kind of small, but that's what you do. You go to Integrated Terminal, and that raises and lowers it. The typer namespace list could not be found. Mage, the code you need is right here. So it's using systems collections generic. So as was mentioned there in chat. And the way that you get that, so I'm going to delete mine so I can show you all what to do again. So if you run into that, delete this. Notice it's got the squiggly line here. Put your cursor there. Just hold the control key and then hit the dot key. When it does this, this is Visual Studio Code trying to help you. And it brings up these suggestions for how to fix things. So the first one here, using system collections generic, you click on that, and it will actually put that right up at the top again. So it put that code back there for me. So if you get the message like what you got about the type or namespace could not be found, that's usually all you need to do, is just click on it, hit Control Dot, it will put it back in there for you. You're not storing a list on another list, you're creating a list object named numbers that points to the same... Yes, Striker, yes. They don't need to know, that is so different level. So, one of the big things about teaching beginners is there's a lot of information that I need to gloss over because you guys don't really care yet. Once you've been programming for years, you're going to care. Greendorf is correct. If you get that, something's trolling you. Oh, Mage. Your VS Code doesn't want to help you? Well, if not, then just add that line at the top and then it'll work. Okay, so our test passes. So, awesome. That's great. Here's what we need to do next. So we said first number should be 1. Okay, so we've verified that. The first number is 1. And actually, I want to change how we wrote this. So I created this variable here. I stored that in there. But I'm actually going to do this instead. I'm going to cut that, paste it in there, get rid of this. So yes, I know this is less clear because I added that, but I want to keep things smaller. I don't want to have so much when I repeat these tests. So now that I've changed things, remember, every single time I change something, no matter how small, I want to come down here, I'm going to hit the up arrow key, and I'm going to type in .NET test again, and I'm going to run that code. The reason I want to run the test, so I said the process we developers use is called red-green refactor. Essentially that means red, green, refactor, but we're looking for green again. So it's kind of like red, green, refactor, green. Green, 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 refactor, green, red, green, you know, like we always want to get to green. So that basically just means run it again. Oh yes, that was a great suggestion of making sure that you've got the C# extension installed. Okay. Okay. Well, I'm not sure why it wouldn't help you then, Mage. So we have this going. Let's go ahead, take these lines of code, copy them, and paste them down here. So we now have a duplicate of this method. And notice it redlines this. It's just yelling at us because we can't have two of the same method. We're going to fix that. So I'm going to say second number should be 2. Now that sounds easy enough. So the second number, remember we index starting at 0, so the second number is at index 1. And then this value should be 2. So that's what we're looking for. So now that I've got this, we have our second test in place. So when I run this test, again, red, green, refactor. So remember that mantra. Now it fails again for the same reason we did before. It says index was out of range. So index was out of range means, remember, I called this word our index, and we said our index starts at 0. There's only one item in this collection. I just tried to access item 2. So it failed again, and that's fine. I'm going to change this to 2. Actually, sorry, I'm going to change it. I'm going to do this. Duplicate the line, change the number to 2. So I added 1, and then I add 2. Right? And remember, we're keeping things simple. We always recommend when anybody's, especially when you're just learning, keep things simple. So come down here, and I want to run this. So I'm betting there's some new people in here. I don't know if you've asked this question yet, but if you do want to follow along with any of the code that we're doing, there's a little bit of setup that you'll need to do in order to follow along with us. And actually, don't mind what I'm doing right now. Don't pay any attention to the man behind the curtain. I'm not doing anything. What are you talking about? There we go. So if you want to follow along with the code that we are doing here on the stream, all you need to do is install that set of tools that I just mentioned there in the stream. So it's the Visual Studio Code, the Dotnet Core Sdk, and the C# extension inside of VS Code. And so if you are interested in following along, that's how you do it. And you can actually take a look at our beginning of our videos to see that. And this is our Learn to Code in C# streams. So if you missed one of these, let me go ahead and open this so you can see it. We have a series of streams. If you follow that link, you can actually watch the videos starting from episode 1. And you can actually notice, so we're here on episode 5 right now, and it says we're live. That's what that little thing means. And you can actually watch along with us right now, following along, or you can start over at the beginning if you like. The only reason I recommend following along with us now, if you can, is that we're here and can answer questions if you have them. So what you could do is you can actually start at the beginning of this video. So if you do actually want to start with this, you could go to videos, and you can actually start watching today's video, which is right here. So you can actually watch while we're still live. So if you want to do that, you are welcome to. Okay, so our test's passing. So that's awesome. So what I want to do is this. I want to duplicate that test again. So I'm going to click on these numbers from 15 down to 21 just to select all these lines here. Your line numbers might not match my line numbers. That's okay. I'm going to duplicate the method again. So I just did a copy paste. So I have 3 of this almost same method, but now I want to say third number should be fizz. Now this is the important part of the code we're writing. oh my G4, we're doing FizzBuzz for beginners. So if you're interested in learning and following along with us, even if you're not a beginner, you are welcome to follow along and help answer questions. So this is where we fix everything. So we have made some trouble for ourselves this whole time, and that's okay. The thing that comes up while you're programming, and this is why we did it this way, is you're gonna start coding along. You'll be coding along, and you're gonna find out, oh wait, no, I did that wrong. I used the wrong type. Now I'm in trouble, and that's okay. Don't worry about it. Like, this kind of stuff comes up all the time. So here's what I'm gonna do. You'll see why in a second that this is a problem. So I want to put in fizz. So I want to assert that fizz equals my number, and I wanted to do the third one, so again, index 2. And when I do this, notice I've got this big red squiggly. I have this squiggly right here, and it says, cannot convert from int to system collections generic IEnumerable of character? What even is that? Whoa! So that's crazy. So Striker, there's actually a lot of reasons that I don't want to get into why we don't use object. I can maybe explain it in a future stream, but that is way too complicated to mention in the beginner stream. Okay, so here's what I want to do instead. So we had int, but I don't want int. So what I'm going to do is this. So remember, int is a number, but half the time we're not using a number, we're using a string. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say string, copy, paste, paste, change all those to string. So now it's complaining because this, my FizzBuzz method, returns back a list of integers, and I'm saying I want to store my list of integers in a list of strings. That's not valid. So I have to come down here and I have to say, no, don't use a list of strings, don't return a list of ints, return a list of strings. And so now all of these are okay for the most part. And then I want to come down here and I want to say, oh, okay, but now I'm returning the wrong type. So I'm going to create this one. I'm going to change this, so now I have this list of strings here as well. And now we're saying, oh, but I'm adding the wrong thing. Okay, that's fine, that's fine. We're going to store these as strings as well. So I'm just going to switch everything over to being strings, which means here, when we were checking for these strings also. So I'm going to do this. So now I've changed everything over to strings. Now, with a professional developer, I would usually tell them, hey, that's too big of a change, blah, 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 but because they're dealing with a larger example, so you probably don't want to do that somewhere bigger, but again, we're doing fairly small code right now, so I'm not too worried about it, and I don't want you all to worry about it either. That's something that I would push on a professional developer, but I wouldn't push on you guys. So right here we run this and we get our red. Again, we got our index out of range, and that's fine. Here's what I'm going to do, because I do want to show you that this works. We're going to put in fizz as our third number. So we're going to add that to our collection that FizzBuzzer creates. So now we run it and it succeeds. So that means 1, 2, and fizz are what this returns, which it is. Now some of you might be saying, well, hang on, why are you testing this? Your code that you're testing is just making sure that the code, like, it's just one-to-one. You're just writing the same thing twice, aren't you? And sorta yes. This really is done by professional programmers, and part of the reason we code like this is we want to make sure that our code does what we think it does. So remember when we were doing our console applications, how I would run the code, and then we would look at the output, and then I would make changes and I'd run the code and I'd look at the output. Well, what this is able to do is every time I run it, it just does it immediately for me. So it's just constantly, like, it can do all of these. I could write 100 tests and it can immediately tell me that all the results are the way I expect them to be. And I don't have to run my program and check it. So that's kind of the thing that we're on. So Striker, you are correct. So we are doing some advanced stuff for being a beginner, lesson here. But what you've got to remember is that we've had 4 other episodes before this point. So remember, we are on episode 5. So we still want people to be able to come in today if they want to, but we're also still trying to build off of what we did in the previous episodes. So there's a balancing act there. So if these are ever too complicated for people, you can still stick around and hopefully learn something, but I do recommend you check out episode 1 and work your way up here, and then you can join us, say, on episode 6, which will be on Saturday. Okay, so our tests are passing. We can say the word fizz. But you might be saying, but you're just hard coding this collection. Yes, I am right now. Don't worry about it. So, we've talked about a couple of other things that I want to discuss. We talked about, so remember, I said this is red-green refactor. We're green right now, so I can start refactoring. So, what I want to do is I want to use one of the loops that we did before. Because obviously, if I keep doing this, right, all I'm going to end up with is code that looks like this, right? And I'm going to have this massive thing with all these values in here, and that's just going to look ugly. I don't want that, right? I want something nice, something simple, something elegant. So the greatest things that developers create are elegant. They're simple. So a creative and complex solution to a problem is not the correct answer when you are programming. What you want to do instead is you want to come up with a simple, elegant solution. So elegant means that someone can look at it and think, wow, that's a nice approach. I understand that. So for an elegant solution, you can look at it and understand it easily. So it's pleasant to look at, is part of the idea. Whereas a complicated or creative solution is not always elegant. So an elegant solution is going to be one that is simple, yet understandable. And that is a tough balance to strike. But that's what we programmers are always looking for, is what's the solution that we can come up with that someone can look at and say, yeah, I get that. I understand that. Yeah, like I Heart Coding said, pleasingly simple. So it's, yeah. Bokyo, unless there's a deadline. So the times when developers don't come up with a good solution is usually when we have a deadline. So, okay. So we've talked previously about the for loop, and this is a special type of loop. So repeating code. We're going to get into this loop, we're going to run the same code over and over, and a for loop is a loop that runs a number of times. This is called a counter-controlled loop. And it basically means that we want to run through a loop a known number of times, so we know that number. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to choose for loop. So remember, when you're doing this, type in the word FOR. That brings up this IntelliSense. The one you want to always pick is the one that when you mouse over it brings up this window here on the right and says C#. So notice it says for loop C#. That's how you know you got the right one. And hit tab. And then once you do that, you'll notice it has, oh look, it created int I, length, and I want to say up to 100. Don't worry about the number right now. So once I do that, I want to change something we do here. So I want to say, move this up here. 1, 2, fizz. But I don't really want to run this. I want to do this instead. So remember, red-green refactor. So I am going to allow the code is going to break a little bit while I refactor it. I want to do this. I'm going to say, instead of adding the number 1 like that, I'm going to say .toString. So essentially what this does is this toString is a special method that exists on all objects in .NET and C#. So I basically said, take my integer, this I, this number that we have, convert it to a string. So it says take that number, get us the string version of that number, and we're going to use that instead. Okay, so when I do this and I run it, we're going to fail on the fizz one again. Oh, actually they all failed. Oh, whoops. Okay, that was my bad. My mistake. Ignore me. So I just changed this. So this number was 0. So we actually started our loop at 0. And hang on while I sneeze, and luckily I hit the mute button so you all didn't have to listen to me sneeze. Okay. So here's what we got. In our test failures, it actually told us what happened. It says expected 1, it actually got 0. Expected 2, it actually got 1. And expected fizz, it actually got 2. So that tells me, oh, I started at 0. I didn't want to start at 0, so I want to start I at the number 1. So, and yes, Brave Cobra, I've been programming for a long time, and we all make mistakes. So that's why, if you make a mistake, feel free to ask a question. If you're getting an error message, ask a question, we'll help you out. We all make these mistakes. So I'm going to change that number to 1. This, I'll be honest, that one wasn't planned. Some of my other mistakes have been planned. That one wasn't. So I'm going to run .NET test again, now that I've changed the starting point of my loop to be 1. So to explain how these loops work, because we've used them before, but I'll re-explain. What it does is in this loop it says, I'm going to create a variable. And this variable is an integer, it's a number, and I'm going to start its value at the number 1. And then every time we go through the loop, I am going to check and see, is that number still less than 100? If it is, we continue into the loop. If it's not, and our number has, if this I is equal to or greater than 100, then that means that this statement is no longer true. If this statement's not true, we exit the loop and return back the numbers. The last step is how we change it. So this is a special operator in C#. So this I++ basically says take I and increase its value by 1. So if it starts at 1, it's going to become 2, and then it's going to become 3, and so every time through the loop, it's going to run this value and compare against this number. And actually, it's going to do the comparison first, but don't worry about that. It's going to do it in this order. It's going to create it, verify it, update the number. As long as that continues to be true, we're going to keep cycling through here. This actually happens as the last step of the loop. Okay, so now you'll notice 2 tests are passing and 1 is failing. That's good. That's where we expect it to be right now. And the test that's failing is it expected fizz, and we actually got 3. So, okay. We talked about this concept of being a multiple. Now there's a lot of ways that we can solve this problem. I'm going to show you the most intuitive way of solving this problem. Here's what we're going to do. I want to say, inside of here, if, and remember, always choose, so when you get this drop-down list, this IntelliSense, always choose the one that gives us this C# on the right-hand side, and hit Tab, and you'll get this. And so this is the structure of our if statement. So the code inside the block only runs if the value inside of that parentheses is true. So I want to say I equals 3. So if I equals 3, then what we want to do is numbers.add, and instead of putting in this, I want to say, nope, not fizz, and then I want to do an else. And again, I'm going to choose the lower one and hit Tab, and it puts in these curly braces. I'm going to click on this line and move it into my else statement. So now I've got numbers.add fizz if our number's 3. Otherwise, come down here and do this one. So that's cool. So that seems to work. Let's go ahead and run this code and we'll see if it does. So again, .NET test, and we run this, and hey, everything passes. So cool. We're right back where we were before, but now we're ready to move forward because I can do something cool. I can now say this. I'm going to duplicate our second test again because I want to say fourth number should be 4. Right? Fourth number is at index 3, and when I run these tests, it should be fine. No, I'm not going to leave 4 in there because, so all the tests pass. 4 is not the one I want to have in here. I want to put in 8. So I'm going to say eighth number should be 8. Now, the reason I'm choosing 8 is because I want to go a few numbers ahead. This confirms that my loop is working. So my loop should be getting me numbers all the way up to 100. So when I do this test now and run it, it still passes. So that's really cool. That tells me, hey, my code is really doing what I think it does. And the neat part about it is I haven't actually run my code yet. You'll notice I'm not running a console application like we have in our previous episodes. I'm not doing .NET Run, right? I'm not doing this every time. I'm not watching output. I'm not validating myself. The code's doing all of that for me. Since I'm into small code, Striker, I'm not actually always into small code. So the thing I defined about elegant is not necessarily that it's the smallest, but that it's simple and understandable. And that's the key. And so doing a ternary operator, yeah, I'm not gonna touch a ternary operator right now, Striker. Don't worry. Yeah. No. Actually, Striker, you did miss a ternary. I think you did miss a ternary operator. Oh, actually, I think you did. Jim Marino, so I have explained for loops and for each loops in a previous episode, and hi DDNC. Yeah, exactly, Striker. So that's what it would be. But anyway, here's what we want to do. So we got that working. So we need a failing test. So let's do this. I want to actually work for this. So we're not even going to consider Buzz yet. We're still going to focus on Fizz. So what's the next Fizz number? 6, right? So 6 is the next multiple of 3. So we're going to say 6th number should be Fizz. So Fizz, and the 6th number you'll remember is at index 5. So I know it's a little confusing sometimes, but the 6th number is at index 5. And Flenick, yes, it is always fun to go back to some of the beginner stuff. Pyro, we're not going to use recursion on this. Okay, so now we're going to say .NET test, just like we have before. But what we're gonna get today is we're actually going to get a failure here. So, and the reason why is because I wrote something. So I'll show you. So expected Fizz, actual was 6. So what happened? Why did that come up? Well, we came in here the 6th time through the loop. We said 6 equals 3. No, it doesn't. Okay, so 6 doesn't equal 3. So we need something else here. So we can't do I equals 3 because what we'd have to do is this. We would have to say or I equals 6, right? So I could put this in here. So inside of an if statement, we have this, if you use two, we call them pipes. They're the vertical bars. That's the way that we say or inside of this. So this is true or this is true. So either I equals 3 or I equals 6. Either one will get us here, and our test passes. That's not the solution we're doing. That's wrong. That's not going to work. But that made the test pass. So we're good with this for now, but here's what we want to change. I talked about the concept of a multiple. So how do we tell if a number is a multiple of something else? Well, the way that we do that, as Thompson says in the chat there, is we want to find out, so a multiple in this case, is anytime you take the number, multiply it by something else, you get a multiple. Which means that for any multiple that you have, say the numbers 6, 9, 12, whatever else you've got, they're always evenly divisible by that number. So 12 is evenly divisible by 3. You get a result of 4. 9 is evenly divisible by 3. You get a result of 3. So is 6. There's no remainder. So if I do, if I do 10 divided by 3, I get the result 3 with a remainder of 1. So that remainder, we can actually find that. There's a programming language, so there's a mathematical concept called modulus. And modulus gets us the remainder of a division. So if they divided evenly, like in the case of 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, you have no remainder. So the division worked perfectly. So there happens to be a modulus operator in C#, and this is what everybody's mentioning in chat. So I mod 3, and that means I divided by 3 but get the remainder, not the result of the division, so just get the remainder. If that remainder equals 0, then we know that it's a remainder. So check if divisible by 3. So that's what that does here. That just checks to see if it's divisible by 3. So now I'm going to run my test again. Remember, when I did 3 or 6, it passed. But now I've written something that's a little better for this. Correct, Pyro. No recursion. Ternary operator. Ternary operators are actually really useful, Striker. Whole bunch of people saying that. C# has... C# does not actually have triple equals, Striker. We don't actually have that one. We just have a double equals. But you got to remember that our double equals out of the box works like a triple equals in JavaScript. So realistically, we don't have their equivalent of a double equals. Or other languages, things like that. So we have that type safety built into our equals, unless someone changes it, because we do allow you to change how the equality operator works. Don't worry about that if you don't know what I'm talking about. Don't worry about a word I just said. I did not mean to do that. Okay, so our test passed. So that's awesome news. Our code works. We're able to run it. Neat. Next thing we want to do. We want to write buzz. So we wrote fizz, we want to do buzz. So let's make ourselves a new test. So notice I skipped 5 and I went up to 6. Let's go back. We're going to now say 5th number should be buzz. Because in our explanation we said numbers divisible by 3 should be fizz, numbers divisible by 5 should be buzz. Nice and easy. So 5 is going to be buzz. So we come down here, we say buzz, and the 5th number is at index 4. Let's go ahead and run this. And again, our test is going to fail. Remember, we like to do red-green refactor. So the first thing we do is we want to see the red, which is what this is. It says expected buzz, actual 5. Okay, that's not a problem. I can do that. So clearly, we know that we can just copy this and paste it down here. We could probably get away with just writing the word buzz there, changing that to 5. And then I want to show you the secret to the problem in programming. Here's one of the best things. This is a really, really neat issue that comes up all the time in programming. Does anyone see anything wrong with my code? I want you all to take a look. The beginners, intermediates, I don't care how much experience you've got programming, let me know what you see that's wrong with my code. The else block. I see like 2 problems actually. So I agree with Pyro. There are 2 problems with my code right now. Oh, good job. Good job. There we go. I think they've both been mentioned. So here's problem number 1. I need to say else here. So I want to say if this, else if this. So the problem is, I could run them both. So I could run this, and then it would come down here and it would run that too. But if I put an else here, then the only way it even checks this one is if it was not divisible by 3. So it had to be not divisible by 3, and then it checks if it's divisible by 5. So if, else, if, and else. So this is a special structure. That means this else, we only do if it's also this, otherwise we drop down here. And someone mentioned the comment. And yes, the comment was the other big thing right there. I needed to change it to say check if divisible by 5. And so that is the cool thing. Yes. Good job, Pyro. Was there another issue? Double add on 15. Yes, Brave Cobra. Yep, exactly. I was going to double add on 15. And yes, DDNC, the comment is overrated. So most developers would actually not include this comment. We just have it here because, again, beginner stream, so it helps it be a little clearer for you. When it be 15, will be Fizz and Buzz. Yes, exactly. So we don't currently handle 15 yet. 15 is actually just going to show up as Fizz, and you'll see that in a second. Okay, so I want to run this code now and see if I got it working or if I still have it failing. Okay, looks like it works. So, the code seems to work. Let's move forward. So, copy and paste again. I want to say 10th number now. 10th number should be Buzz. So Buzz, remember index 9 is the 10th number. I'm going to run this again. I think it already works. So sometimes our code's already going to pass, and we're kind of okay with that as long as we knew, yeah, that's going to work because we wrote it that way, it's fine. But now let's get to the special case. Whoops. Don't do what I just did there and select everything. Just select this. We want to do the big one here. This is the big one. This is the one we've been waiting for. 15th number should be FizzBuzz. Hang on. No break. No need for breaks in a for loop. So there are need for breaks, not in this case at least, but not in this case. I was suggesting the break keyword, not a break on the stream. Oh. I shouldn't need the break keyword. I don't need to do anything breaking. So I can't remember if we covered break at all in a previous stream, but if we did not, we'll fix it. We'll cover that at some point. So here's what I want to do. 15th number should be FizzBuzz. So 15th number is index 14. We're going to run this. It should come back with the word fizz instead of FizzBuzz because of the way we wrote our code. So expected FizzBuzz, actual fizz. Let's take a look at what happened. So it comes in here. We get to the 15th time through this loop. So I equals 15. We come in here and we say if I mod 3 equals 0, it does. We add in fizz, okay? And then we don't do these else's because we already completed this. So this is the only loop we ran. And then it exits. So help me out here. I'm going to ask you all, where should I put FizzBuzz? So I want to handle FizzBuzz. Where should I put it? Bokyo says on top. So first thing I should do, Bokyo says, is check for that. That is really funny, Pyro. Nightbot thought you were swearing there or something. So I'm going to do another if up on top. And because I did that, remember, like with last time, I want to say else here. So up here, I want to say if I %3 equals 0, and remember I told you that the OR was 2 vertical pipes, I want to say 2 ampersands. So 2 of the AND signs, and that says I want to do an AND. So I want to say and I %3 5 equals 0. So essentially what I'm saying is, if I is divisible by 3, and it's also divisible by 5, then I want to do this. If it's not divisible by both, then I want to say if it's divisible by just 3, then do this. And else if it's divisible by 5, only do this. And if it wasn't divisible by any of them, do this. So that's what we've got. And Pyro says he would still nest it in here. So Pyro is suggesting we put it... Pyro is suggesting this. That we put it in here. And say, if it's divisible by 5, then make it FizzBuzz. Right? And that's also valid. But that's not where we're going to put it. We're going to put it in the other spot. But what that illustrates, and why I love that Pyro pointed it out even though we were going this direction already, so thank you for mentioning it, Pyro, is that there are tons of ways to solve the same problem. So, yes, so as Pyro points out, so if it's not FizzBuzz, I actually check the modulus multiple times. I'm doing extra work, and Pyro is right. I am. And the reason I'm doing this extra work is actually for the sake of clarity. There are other approaches I could do. So if I were concerned about the performance, but I still wanted to make the code... I think this is a little clearer and easier to read, which is why I'm going this way. But Pyro's right. I'm doing extra steps to do it. But performance usually is not the concern with most of the code that developers write, though we do need to be careful that we consider performance. But there are some tricks that we could do, like I could do the calculation once and save the value, so I only have to do it once, and then just use it in multiple places. So I could write like bool is divisible by 3, and say i% 3 equals 0. Right, so I could do this, and I could store that value, and there's other things I could do as well. And then once I've stored it, then I wouldn't have to check it twice, but we're not going to do that. This is clear enough, I think. So we check to see, is it divisible by 3? Is it divisible by 5? If so, add FizzBuzz. If not, then check to see if it's divisible by 3 and do Fizz. If not, check and do Buzz. Let's go ahead and run our tests and see what happens. So again, we're going to type .NET test into the command line window and run it. A bunch of stuff in chat. Second condition true should be first separate condition. So otherwise you won't catch the condition. Hello everybody. And Fletic is correct. There are actually a lot of cases where compilers will optimize things out for you. So for anyone who doesn't know, because so first off, test pass, woohoo! Test pass, yay! So the compiler, you'll hear us use that term. The compiler is the program that takes this text that we write and turns it into the computer code. So when we type .NET build, this is what builds our code. That is the compiler coming along, taking our code and turning it into computer code instead of this is actually human readable code. I know it barely seems human readable if you're a new programmer, but I mean we can read this, right? If you saw what it's actually creating, you would understand why we make that distinction that this is human readable. So, okay. So I'm actually going to get rid of these comments for now. And our code passes. Now I wanted to illustrate a couple of points. So you can follow along for this or just watch, and I will show you what I mean. So Pyro brought up a really awesome thing. And that's why I was so excited and glad that he mentioned it. And I didn't even pay Pyro to say that. Was I went one route and Pyro pointed out, hey, I would have done this a different way. And this is the neat thing about programming. So I want you guys to try stuff. I'm really hoping that while I'm talking, if you had a moment, you change the code. So do something different. Write something I didn't tell you to write. Do something I didn't do yet. Make a change. Write a new test. Try to write something differently. You can actually mess with this code, and you'll probably still get it to work, because you don't need to do it the way that I did. And so here's the neat thing. What I can get away with, so I'm going to ignore FizzBuzz for now, but I want to show you something kind of cool. What I can do is this. So I'm going to do like a mind-melting almost thing for a second. I might mess this up, but here's what I want to do. Numbers.add, and then I'm going to say I.toString. I might scare people, but I'm hoping that I can make this still work for the most part. So I'm going to make a few of these tests pass. How many of these tests are passing? Okay. So I just want to see how many of those tests passed. Okay, 5 of the 8 tests just passed with this code. I just did really weird code. Where are my if statements? Where's my modulus? I don't see it. It's not anywhere to be seen. Okay, here's the cool thing. I can do this. So I just did something totally crazy. Hang on. I'm now going to do this. And check it out. Boom. Oh, only 5 passing? Hang on. 5 plus FizzBuzz. Which one's failed? 6 Fizz. 1, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, whoops. Right. I'm gonna have to do 2 full cycles if I do it that way. There's got to be a way to do this. Okay, that'll take some thinking. But either way, I did get a bunch of the tests to pass without actually having an if statement. So with, whoops. Need to do that. This weird code actually passes everything that's not a buzz. So this handles fizz entirely. I%15. So Brave Cobra, you can actually. So Brave Cobra is asking a great question. And I'm going to hit Control-Z until we get back to it. There it is. Okay. So we put this up here. Brave Cobra's wondering why I didn't just do I%15 equals 0. So the short answer is there's not really any reason why we didn't do it this way, Brave Cobra. We can do it this way, and it'll also work. So this illustrates sort of the point that I'm trying to make, which is there are so many ways of solving a problem that there isn't one answer. So I've had you all following along with my code this whole time. So if you are learning this, I hope you do follow what I was writing and do the same thing, and that helps you get to a right answer. But the point that we need to make is that you can actually get whatever you want. And as Farad points out, and I apologize if I mispronounced your name there, instead of writing 15 here, we could say 3 times 5 instead of 15. And that'd also work. And so the point here is that there are so many ways of writing the same code that no 2 developers are ever going to have exactly the same thing. So interestingly, I mentioned earlier on in the stream when people were commenting about like, oh man, I can't believe you have the patience to teach at the beginner level. Well, I used to actually teach at a university. So I taught Intro to Computer Programming to non-computer science majors. So some of my best students were actually like One of my best students was actually an African art history major. And literally that, like, he was a fantastic programmer. I had women, I had men, plenty of them programmed. We worked in a lab, varying levels of experience with computers. It didn't matter. I actually would have computer science students in my class because they would just take it because it's an easy A for them. They did well also. Anyone can program, and regardless of knowledge about computers and things like that, so it works out pretty well. The cool thing is, if you've had to teach at a university, you might know that there is a thing of like, you want people to work together in the lab and things like that, and you want people to have experience programming with other people. So notice in here in this environment, we're allowing everybody to ask everybody else questions. You can always look at Google. But the thing is that I always wanted people to turn in their own code. So one of the things that is interesting is it is really hard to plagiarize code. And the reason I say that is when 10 people turn in an assignment and 5 of them have the same code, it's really obvious. So, because the number of ways that we could have written this, someone in here could have said, oh, you know what, instead of passing in the 100, we could pass in max number instead of having the 100 there, and we could just use that here, and then max number is now out here. And that is a massive difference in the code and does the exact same thing, right? So I'm going to undo that because I'm not going to make that change right now, but the point is, there are so many ways of doing that. One person might have been like, you know what? I want to extract out this as a variable and say like, or maybe this is a method, maybe it's a variable, I don't know. But the point is there's so many different ways that you can do these things that it's really, really hard to say, oh yeah, so-and-so and I probably just came up with the same solution. No, you didn't. Not that I had a problem with plagiarism, but I know that it's a much harder thing to do because you can't just come up with the same stuff. Case I win that. Oh, yeah, psych. Actually, I think that does work. So kicks in 1987. Would I teach kids to program ages 14 to 17? Absolutely. 14 to 17-year-olds can totally learn to program. I was programming younger than that. So I can absolutely 100% tell you that kids can learn how to program. In fact, when I was in school, I was programming my calculator all the time, so you can absolutely do that. So how would I teach them? There are a handful of ways. One of the suggestions that I would make is I would show them how to program their own games. So games are a fun way to do it, and then there are also games online that you can use. Wait, hang on. Why would you do... Or does max number have a default to 100? Yes. Could you just try to mine for a joke there? I wonder if it passes. Okay, so there are actually a lot of ways. So first off, there are websites on the internet dedicated to teaching children how to program. They tend to take a more simplistic gamifying approach and don't teach an actual programming language. If you want to go with a programming language approach, one of the things that I'm planning on doing on the stream, and I'm actually not going to do it until next year probably, but the idea that I have for the stream, so one of the things I'm doing, I should mention this, so watch the screen right now, I think this will work. So look up there above my head right now, see the little hype icon that appeared there? See that? Look. There it is, hi hype icon, hello. And it's about to disappear. And it's gone. Okay, cool. What I'm doing is I'm actually programming some cool stuff to fly around on the screen around me. And what I would recommend if you're trying to teach kids is if you want to teach them like real programming languages and not just teach them like the gamify stuff, which you could go the gamify stuff, that's a great way to get them introduced. But if you want to teach them like real stuff, what you'll want to do is, good job, I heart coding. Yes, you can trigger that. What I recommend that you do is go with something that's going to create a cool visual. So what I'm going to do in 2019 is I intend to actually do a small amount of game development. very small. I am not a game programmer, and part of that is why I actually think it's going to be fun to do that, because you all are going to see me write some code, not as a guy that knows how to, you know, create massive games, but because I can take kind of a fun little approach, and it's something that I want to learn, and I think we can all have fun with it together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be building some JavaScript, just canvas-style games, and I want them to be playable over this screen. So, we're going to get started with some of that. I'm already setting up things to display on the screen, but I've got some cool ideas. So, you all are actually probably going to... So, I know my regulars are going to love the cool stuff. Brave Cobra, yes, SignalR. Look, Brave Cobra. Did that work? No. Okay. So it's not super wired together right now, so I've sort of just hacked it in right now. But SignalR is actually how I'm getting that hype icon to appear on the screen, the one that moves a little bit on the screen. And I shop at Little Welcome. Hello. And I recognize I Heart Coding too. I Heart Coding is in here regularly. Switch works with a variety of types. Okay, so I gotta admit that at college, age 17, I was changing basic keywords into naughty words on the... Nice, S&B. Sorry, Kixon. The bot will kick you out for that stuff. You can't post links in here. Not a problem, not a problem. No need to apologize. Our bot just does that for safety's sake. We don't want people posting links to stuff, so the bot steps in, guards against it. Okay, so here's the cool thing. So someone was just mentioning another approach we could take. David has an awesome question, which I will absolutely answer. There is sometimes a bit of a hiring season for entry-level positions within companies, and that actually corresponds with the graduation of university students. So if you're in a place where that kind of thing happens, so in the US, for example, our students all graduate in around like May or June, and when the students are graduating from universities with degrees in computer science, they go on to have a job right afterwards, an entry-level position at a company. So it's very common for a lot of people to get those jobs then. But that also means there's a lot of people looking then. So you can have reduced competition if you look at other times, but there's also fewer jobs. So it's a toss-up, and I would actually recommend trying to find the job whenever, David. I'm going to ask for DevChatter's opinion again since he hasn't... sorry, Striker. What question did I miss? You're creating a switch statement that accepts integers in the case size, but you're attributing a Boolean password. It's not changing int password. Switch the Boolean. Thank you. You're welcome, David. Feel free to stick around and hang out still. Took on 2 junior devs about 6 months ago, and they have been injected with a lot of fun. Yes, exactly. So I worked at a number of consulting companies, and one of the big things that I will tell you, so if you're not a junior programmer, you want to hire junior programmers. They're very good. They're great to have on the team, and they will add a lot to your entire development team. They come in with fresh ideas, fresh perspectives, and things like that, and it's very helpful. Does C# allow you to do comparisons as a switch case? Yeah, so here's what you can do. So if I switch on I like this, C# actually has a lot of cool things. So I can actually do case... what is it? And then where I equals 3, right? So I could do this. Does that allow me to do that way? Oh, I want to say x, or x equals 3, right? Is that how I want to do it? Case int x for x. No. Okay. Well, I thought it was going to let me do that, but I think because of the type that it is, it won't allow me to. So I could do this, and I can definitely get around it. So our switch statements are a little bit different, and we do have a concept called pattern matching, Striker. It's a little weird, and I can kind of explain how some of it works, but it works a little differently with ints because it's a native type, so it's a little different. So anyway, tell that to my boss. Tell my boss that he won't hire anyone with less than a bachelor's degree and multiple years of work. Well, Kixon, it's hard to convince people of some of those kinds of things because they're afraid of hiring someone that's going to make mistakes. But I can tell you, if you want fresh ideas and things like that on your team, hiring junior developers is one of the best ways that you can do it. And then the other thing that I'll tell you is that hiring junior developers lets you actually train them to do things well. So some of the best developers I've ever worked with came through our internship program at the companies I've worked with. So I often run the internship program at in the organizations that I work for. And part of the reason for that is because I know how valuable it is to be bringing in people with these fresh new ideas. So the junior developers, the interns, they're brilliant, they're amazing, and once they're essentially learning with you the whole way, you can train them to do all the great stuff that you love. So a lot of us a lot of the programmers that are in here that have a lot of experience doing things have a lot of experience doing things the old way. And a lot of us struggle to do the new stuff. So not to call you out, but like if S&B is in here, S&B can probably mention that switching from not unit testing to unit testing was probably a giant step. And if you just start off with that being the way you do things, you are so much better off. So the younger programmer that starts off doing all the good practices that you like is just golden. Like, it is so nice to be able to just step in and not have years of doing it the old way. So it's actually really good. I actually worked in consulting for a while, and it's funny. Our clients would often, unsolicited, would give praise about developers, and it's funny because I just be laughing. I'm like, yeah, you're talking about one of the juniors, like that. Like occasionally it would be like, that is a 17-year-old kid that you are complimenting. This is hilarious. So, that's one of the best things is when it's like, yeah, they're just coming, and so I get to go talk to that junior. I'm like, hey, you're doing a great job. The client absolutely loves you. They're talking about how much they enjoy working with you. I'm like, keep up the good work. And so it's funny because it's like, yeah, juniors are often fantastic. David, you mentioned that you've got an interview. Yeah. So David, learning C# if you know Java is actually not that hard. Basically, all the new stuff that Java's been getting these past couple of years, C#'s had that for like 4 years. So basically, as long as you're up to date on your Java, you're basically going to know all the things that are in C# because they are very closely related languages, so it shouldn't be a difficult transition for you. Sometimes it's going to be so close that it's confusing, but you just need to learn the different pieces. I think you'll be fine. Brave Cobra, I can't check that one-liner right now. Maybe later. Junior developers are sometimes better, good practice and tunnel vision by their own ways. Yes, what I Heart Coding said. The great thing about junior developers is they haven't learned the bad method yet. So it's really great. Put in the effort to write a book-sized line of code right now. Yeah, I hope you do get it, David. Java and C# are very similar syntax-wise. Exactly. So C# was created basically as a replacement for Java. So that's the short answer. And after about 5 years or so, I would argue that C# had caught up to and slightly surpassed Java. Because when C# implemented things like generics, it actually built a generic solution. And if we wanted to have a big in-depth language discussion, I could explain to you how C# generics work and how Java's generics work. And it's actually quite frightening that if you actually know what Java's doing, because it's lying to you massively. That's one of the things that has scared me, is I believe they're still using type erasure. Let's see, Java, you can do that more. Okay, cool, Brave Cobra. Boomster, I really appreciate it. Thank you. I like my stream too. I like all of you. I have fun with it. C# adoption relative to Java is a tough one. It's hard to get the actual numbers because you can get numbers for various things, but they don't always get you the answers that you want. So you can look at number of programmers that use one or the other language. You can look at number of solutions on GitHub written in each of the language. But it's hard to know how many programs in the wild are written in each one, because it's like an untrackable thing, because no one knows internally how many my private business has in place. So just because I hired a C# developer doesn't mean anything else. So it's hard to say. Yes, exactly, I heard coding. That's why I don't want to get into all the specifics. But in other streams, so for anyone who is here, if you are a beginner and you want to attend our regular streams, you are welcome to. I will talk about things that are much higher level than a beginner level in our regular streams. When I bring that stuff up, just don't worry, just know that I'm going to be continuing on. We'll have those discussions. Hopefully you understand some of it. And even when I explain the higher concept stuff, I try to still make it clear, because I'm weird. I know I'm weird. I like digging into programming languages. That alone makes me weird. Back when I was in college, one of the guys I used to have a lot of discussions with is someone that was really obsessed with programming languages. I say this because he went on to work directly with... Thanks, guys. Yeah, I'm special. He went to work with Bjarne Strustrup, and basically, like, for a couple of years, just did all of Bjarne Strustrup's programming for him. It would be a good description, because, you know, Bjarne can just hire, you know, other people with PhDs to just write their code for them. When you're that famous, you can kind of get away with that stuff. So it's just kind of funny, because it's like, oh, you went to literally program with the creator of C++. Okay, yeah, you're language obsessed. But it's just funny, because it's like, I would talk to him about C++ and Java and C# and all kinds of different programming languages, and we'd discuss the pros and cons of the ways that each different programming language handles every weird underlying concepts. And this is what I would do for fun, is have these kinds of discussions with people over some drinks. So, yeah, a little weird. And I love that you're not weird, you're special. What? I can admit it, I'm weird. And, you're not weird, yeah. I Heart Coding, love it. So, I Heart Coding is not a beginner programmer, and is a professional .NET developer, and still learns things. So, I am glad to hear it. So that is actually another one of the things that I do want to point out to all the beginners, is that there are always new things to learn. So, it's really awesome. That's actually one of the reasons why, you know, streaming and this sort of thing is such a fun thing, is because everybody's here learning new stuff. What do I think about Lispers? Are they crazy? Jim Marino, no. Lisp is actually very powerful and useful. I have written cool stuff in languages related to Lisp, like Clips. And is this language nerds who write compilers? Yes, Psych, it is. Every day, guys, can we carry on with the advanced stuff and let the teacher here teach the beginners? Don't worry about it, Striker. We're actually at the end of the stream. So at the end of a lot of my streams, what I like to do, a lot of people start bringing up questions, and so I start answering them towards the end of the stream. So most of my streams are 2 to 3 hours long. So I usually have something I want to get through. We completed FizzBuzz, so I guess I will talk. So before I'm going to answer more questions about programming, C# and other things like that that people have. I know you all have questions. I'd love to be able to answer them for you and not just leave you guys sitting here. I want the stream to be interactive. That's why I answer questions while we're programming, but also other stuff. But I want to talk to everybody about what our streams are, what we do, and everything like that, because there is a lot of stuff going on here. So first off, if you are a beginner, I want to welcome you guys back on Saturday. We're going to do some more programming, beginner level. So you are all welcome. If you missed any of our streams so far, follow that link that I just posted in chat. It'll take you to this place, and you can actually watch our videos one at a time, and that'll catch you up to where we are today. So if you want to, really, really dive into programming, I recommend you check these out. They will get you a good handle on programming in C#. And I believe you can even speed them up, slow them down, pause them. And while you're watching them, you actually get to see the chat window that was going on when we did it live. So you can jump into any point, and the neat part is, and while I jump into the middle somewhere, you'll notice over there on the side, look, the whole chat window's there. So if someone asked a question, I didn't repeat it before I answered it, it's over there. So that's the neat thing, is that you can get all that information while you're doing this. So if you want to check that, that is actually available to you. So you can catch up. Our next stream, if you want to be here, is August 11th. That's Saturday. And if you want to get reminders, you can actually get reminders to all of the Learn to Code in C# series. So that's all of our beginner ones, just by clicking that. And you could also just follow our channel here on Twitch, and you can get reminders as well. There will be a little heart icon there. It obviously doesn't show for me because, you know, I'm me. I don't need to subscribe to my own channel. So that's what you can do there. If you want to see our old videos, you can actually just go to this videos section here, and this actually includes all of our videos, not just, so up at the top here it has our Learn to Code series, but then you actually get all of our videos. So if you're not a beginner and you want to check out our old streams, a lot of them are up here. Notice it only goes back to May. If you want to see the older streams, you can go to our YouTube channel, which is right over here. And this is our YouTube channel, and it has our older streams. So Twitch only keeps some of them. If you want to see our older stuff, this is the place to do it. You can go subscribe here at youtube.com/c/devchatter and check out our archives of our old videos. If you want to know what we work on here on the chat, what I will mention is that all the code that we do here on stream is actually stored out on GitHub. So even the stuff we do in our beginner stream is actually out here at github.com/devchatter. So the beginner streams are here in the Learn to Code section, so you can find all the code here and you can take a look at our old stuff. So if you're following along and you want to look at something, it's all saved here so you can check this out. But our main project that we work on here is actually our chatbot, which, by the way, is what you can interact with here over in the chat window. Random Rick, it's going well, so hopefully you are enjoying things. We're going to chat a little bit about coding here. So that's our Hangman game, for example, and people can play Hangman with it. That's actually a chatbot that we program in here. It does some other interesting things as well. And we're actually going to be having it interact more with the screen around me. So during the stream, it's going to do stuff like up on the screen. So we've only just started adding those features up to this point. We have been primarily just doing stuff in the chat. So, but we are going to branch out and do more stuff on the screen. And I've got some really awesome ideas for what we want to do with that. So hopefully people are coming back for these for those streams. And if you do want to make sure you catch our stream, again, make sure you follow the channel. That's the best way. Really nice stream today. Really enjoyed the Kata walkthrough and good commentary. Can't wait until the next one. Awesome, Floodgris, thank you. Our next stream is actually tomorrow, and it's actually going to be an interesting one. So what we're going to do tomorrow, not quite Random Rick, I'm going to be around and answering questions and talking about code still for a little bit. So no need to duck out just yet, but I wanted to make sure that I talk to everybody about what's going on, the schedule and things like that, before anybody disappears. So today was August 6th, Monday, 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We did our Learn to Code in C#, episode 5 today. Tomorrow, we are going to do a coding challenge with James Gifford. So he is not a C# developer, and so but he's really crazy, and he and I are going to do a little bit of coding challenge together. So we are going to do some fun stuff. So essentially the idea is we're probably going to do something where we head-to-head compete, you know, coder style kind of thing. Could be kind of fun. James is an awesome guy, awesome developer, and I think that'll be a fun coding stream. It's also possible that we'll do a bit of pair programming using Visual Studio Code and LiveShare. Beginners and anybody else who hasn't seen, we are going to do something really neat on the stream. So one of my favorite features in Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code right now is called VS LiveShare, and it actually lets us pair program live. I Heart Coding. Actually, we are going to be doing it. So we've had a machine learning stream on hold since April. There is actually a guy that works for a company that we're going to bring on for a machine learning stream, and it's going to be a good one. We have a neat idea that we're going to do, but so there's other coding I need to do before I bring him on stream, so that's why he hasn't been on here yet. One of our projects I need to bring further along. It's our game tracker project. I need to bring that up to speed. Anyway, the other things I want to talk about. So people here in chat, I know that not all of you have yet, so some of you are engaging the .NET community, the developer community, the programmer community, and thank you for following, everybody. I really appreciate it. And I heard coding. I'll tell you what the machine learning thing is in a minute. But engaging the developer community is a difficult thing for a lot of us to do. How do we do it? That sort of thing. Cassandra Ferris is one of those people that has a lot of involvement in the developer community. She helps to run conferences, things like that, and she is going to be helping us out on Thursday and talking with us about that idea. I'm not sure how long she's going to be here, so maybe that'll be an hour or something like that. If we do wrap up within an hour with Cassandra, we'll just, wave her goodbye. She'll be up there in the corner up there, but then we'll just wave by and we'll go back to some coding. So that'll be fun. So if you want to learn about how to get involved in the developer community, we're going to bring her on for that, because I think more of us would be interested in that sort of thing. And thank you for the follows, everyone. I really appreciate it. So then on Saturday, we're going to do more Learn to Code in C#. Okay, I heard coding. You asked about machine learning. Regarding machine learning, we are going to have a developer named Guy Royce. Guy Royce, developer. Let's make sure we get the right Guy Royce. Twitter. Yep, that's him right there. Okay, so this is Guy Royce. He's really crazy. He really does have that beard. That is not like... Yes, his name is Guy. Yes, that beard, wow. Yeah, I know, it's kind of impressive, actually. Anyway, he works for a company that creates machine learning tools. They were recently acquired by someone else. I forget the name of the company that acquired them, but anyway, irrelevant. The point is that this is a JavaScript developer that does some cool machine learning stuff. I believe their tools all run in Python. I know JavaScript, I know Python, I know C#. One thing you're going to learn about developers is we often know a lot of languages, and I do approve of learning a lot of languages. I think it's really valuable, and I love learning new stuff. Guy is going to show up and help us build something cool. In one of our projects, we do one called Game Tracker, and it is a web application that is designed for us to record games played with our friends. So let's say I sat down with a bunch of friends, we played a board game, and I want to record who was in the game, who played, who won, who lost, who taught the game, various things like that. Yes, you do, AfroHack. And anyway, so the idea is that we also then might want to say, like, oh, well, Brendan, we might want to put in ratings. So I might say, like, yeah, I really liked this game. I'd give it, 4 out of 5 stars. And then, maybe Pyro was playing in the game also. And Pyro's like, yeah, I didn't really like that game. 2 out of 5 stars, right? And so we give these games these ratings. And after enough data, we want our website to be able... I want to be able to go in there and say, hey, you know what? Pyro and I are going to play a game. Can you recommend a game for us? And we want to make the website be able to make game recommendations. So the idea would be, well, we might say, like, oh, well, the game that this game, so Brendan and Pyro have played before, had dice in it. It had a drafting mechanic with cards, and it was a worker placement game. Those are game mechanic terms. Don't worry about that. But the idea is, we want to say there's these attributes about the game. Well, Brendan seemed to like those, and Pyro didn't. So in the game recommendations, because Pyro's in the game, it's not going to recommend those types, and it's going to find, well, what game mechanics do they both like? Oh, that's the type of game that it's going to suggest. So we're going to try to do that kind of thing. We're going to make the machine figure out what games we should choose. Oh, and AfroHack, so the reason he has those runes in his name is, I believe he did something with machine learning where he was teaching the program to read those or something. I don't remember. He's got some presentation on it. It's kind of cool. Is that anything for beginners to type along? Rubik's. I would say the beginners can really follow along with almost anything that we do. I talk about concepts that are probably going to be a little bit high level, and beginners might not always understand why I'm structuring things the way I am and things like that. But they're always welcome to show up to the stream, and if they have questions, ask them, because that helps to make sure that I slow down and explain as well. There were some other questions for me, I remember, that were in chat. David asked about C# and .NET having an equivalent of Maven and Gradle build tools. Yes, David, we do have build tools. That was 2 Brendoniuses at the same time. Oh, yes, so you guys were talking about the thing where I had, like, the streamception craziness. Yeah, exactly, Rubik's. And that is actually the correct idea. If you are a beginner, don't try to understand everything we do. Just try to follow along as best you can. You will not understand everything, but hopefully you'll understand enough to gain some knowledge on that. Okay. The math and recommendation system might be a little swingy, but I think this kind of makes sense, I hope. Human DevChatter, new human DevChatter, stream status offline, DevChatter, this guy, Striker. I live in the United States, so it's not even 5 o'clock yet, so I'm not going to sleep yet. But anyway, yeah, so, I know a bunch of people, so I want to welcome everybody that's here. I do want to mention what I am going to do in the future streams, so just so you know what you're getting into. Normally we do programming on our stream. We work on some projects that we do on here, so things like our chatbot. And I know a lot of people actually keep our stream running in the background while they are working on other stuff. So you don't have to focus all the time. We like it when you do, but hey, if you want to keep us running in the background while you're programming, we get it. Some people are at work, and that's cool. And as Rubik's mentioned, if you want to know when our streams are, you can actually use our schedule command. That's part of our bot that we programmed in there. It will actually translate our schedule into your time zone for whatever place you're in. So just type in schedule and say where you are, whether you do country, city, whatever. It should be able to find you. So there, like DDNC did, you can just say Belgium and it'll give you Central European Standard summertime. And I could say, for example, it's not where I live, but I could say Seattle, for example, and it'll give me what our schedule is in Seattle. So if you do want to catch our stream, Pyro, I don't know, it might be able to. Nope, because it thinks it's a number. Don't your API keys get used up? Rubik's. It could if we hit too many times, but in addition, what the bot is actually doing is it is saving some of those, so we are caching some of those search results so that we don't have to do it extra times. I heard coding. Thanks for stopping by. If people actually have other questions, feel free to shout them out right now. I am going to wrap up the stream here in a sec. I know I have a lot of European viewers, so I try not to run too late so that you can all get to sleep. Because I know it's, what, like after 10 o'clock for a lot of you, the Central European time people, so. Yeah, see, 10:30. Did you take a look? Oh, Pyro, no I didn't. I will do that after this stream. So, yeah, so anyway, we will be starting tomorrow the same time we did today, so set your clocks. We are, what, 21 and a half hours away from our next stream. It'll be at 2 p.m. my time, and again, as I mentioned, it's going to be a fun one. We're going to have James up in the top corner there. If we have stuff that's collaborative, I will have him actually using VS Live Share, so imagine like Google Docs where you can have multiple people editing the same document at the same time except with code, so it's going to be really cool. We might do some of that. We're going to be doing some coding challenges, so I don't know if we're going to do just cooperative or if we're going to do head-to-head competition ones, but we'll figure that out. Random Rick, my biggest suggestion to any beginner that is just learning to code, what you want to do is always make sure you've got a side project that you're working on. Always have something that you can code and you can hack on and you can build. If you get to a point where you don't know what to change with your code, just start a new project. So that's one of the best tips I can give you there. And if you are looking for stuff to code, my recommendation for that one is to go to the Kata catalog that Steve set up here. So you can go there. Yeah, seriously, one of the best recommendations I can give you is just write more code. It's actually a really good way to do things. So, yep, write more code. Okay, so I think I will wrap here. I think we had a good stream today, and I want to thank everybody for showing up and hanging out. So if you followed, I greatly appreciate it. If you haven't yet clicked the follow button, click that follow button, and you will get notified when we go live. And if you want to chat with any of us outside the stream, I highly recommend that you join our Discord. That is a chat application, and there are a bunch of us on there, so plenty of other developers to talk to. So seriously, go click the Discord button. Smart ASCII, yes, we're just wrapping up. You're late. Flenick, much appreciated for the Twitch Prime subscription. You now have a dinosaur egg next to your face, and well, next to your name, whatever it is, and access to our DevChatter hype emote. Yeah, don't worry, Smart ASCII. I'll be streaming again tomorrow, and Afrohack, thank you as well for the Twitch Prime subscription. You now also are in your dinosaur egg and have access to the DevChatter hype emote. Yeah, so we recently got some cool new stuff, and actually I just realized I didn't. Oh, awesome! And yes, people should totally join our Discord. It's a chat application. You can go check that out. And there are a bunch of developers in there. We really do chat about code in there. So if you want to talk to other developers about programming, things like that, it is actually a good place to be. There's a good amount of chatter about different things. More dev chatter. That's what we want. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to link. Oh, you can follow me. My name's Brendan. I'm on Twitter. Or you can follow the DevChatter Twitter account. Either one. Already a Hangman game running. Oh, yeah, Pyro, there's a Hangman game running. Do you get some money for Twitch Prime? Like a, oh, yeah, so Flenick, the money that Twitch streamers get for subscriptions, it's actually the exact same whether it's a Twitch Prime sub or just a money sub. So there's no difference as far as the streamer is concerned. So, yep, exactly the same. But now I want to finish this Hangman game before we go. So let's finish the Hangman game, everybody. Did we guess that letter yet? Okay, so there's a P. Is there an R? Oh, I know the word. I know the word. I know it. Oh, Smart ASCII got it. There we go. So the word on our Hangman game was resharper. So Pyro, the problem is it's actually random with no like memory of what it's chosen before. So because it's actually random, it can get any word just as good of odds as any other. So welcome to statistics. So okay, cool. Well, you guys caught me right as I was ducking out there, so I was going to thank everybody for showing up and hanging out, and whether you were just sitting around viewing, whether you chatted, we appreciate all those things. And then I love the all the follows we got today. We got plenty of followers, so thank you everybody who followed. We appreciate it, and we hope to see you back on our next one. And then thank you Flenick and Afrohack for the Twitch Prime subscriptions. It is always appreciated, and we get more dev chatters in here with hype emotes, which is all the fun stuff we want. And then I wanted to make sure I thank Code Rushed for the host today. We got a 5-viewer host from Code Rushed. So, awesome. Resharper waiting again. Bokyo, no, I won't be playing any Dota. But I will be playing some games today. Don't you worry about that. I am a gamer after all. And Afrohack, I appreciate it. I don't know in what way I'm different, but whatever it is, I'm glad you like it. And thanks for the follow there, Leon. And we're going to take off now, and we'll be back tomorrow for some more good streaming. So take care, everybody. Happy coding, and enjoy the rest of your Monday. Hopefully it didn't hit you too hard. So, take care.